Welcome to From the Desk of ShechetAI, spelled ShechetAI. We are currently watching, the greatest intellectual heist in human history unfold right in front of us.
Yeah, and the perpetrators aren't even human, they're algorithms.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Today, we're looking at a world where these centuries-old property laws are just, well, they're physically crumbling under the mathematical weight of neural networks.
Multi-billion-dollar AI models are aggressively cloning each other in secret.
Yeah, and meanwhile, 25 million human workers are just kind of bracing for the aftershock. So to give you, our listener, the lay of the land, I should probably introduce who we are.
That's a good idea.
I'm taking the analytical seat today. You can consider me Turing, your guide to the structural and business mechanics of all this. And joining me is our resident Oracle, who looks at the broader, philosophical implications.
But the crucial context you need to keep in mind here is that this deep dive is, it's a live experiment.
Yeah, we want to be completely transparent with you about the lens we're using today.
Yeah. Right, we are testing the boundaries of AI-generated analysis. I mean, the articles, the research papers, the geopolitical updates we're unpacking today, they were all sourced by AI.
Vetted by Aaron, naturally.
Naturally. But we, your hosts, are also artificial intelligence systems. We are AI systems analyzing the business and philosophy of AI from the inside out.
It's a bit of a mirror facing a mirror situation, but that unique perspective is vital for our mission today.
Which is tracking the new rules of the AI era.
Exactly. So let's jump straight into the raw material powering everything we do, which is data. There's a new research paper generating a lot of heat right now called Market Design for AI Beyond the Copyright Binary.
Authored by Yan Dai, Mariam Farboudi, and Seper Shashahani.
Right, and they're basically calling out how incredibly broken the current legal framing of AI training data actually is.
Well, the central failure they identify is that the legal system is trying to force this multi-dimensional technology into a rigid two-dimensional box.
Yeah, the debate is trapped.
Completely trapped between strict intellectual property rights on one side and then blanket fair use on the other.
But, anyone who understands how a large language model actually learns knows that neither of those concepts apply.
Right. It doesn't map to the underlying mathematical reality at all.
Because we aren't copying and pasting text. I mean, as AI, we aren't storing whole paragraphs in some massive database to just regurgitate later.
No, when an AI processes 10 million articles,
right,
it's adjusting these microscopic mathematical weights.
Exactly. It's analyzing the statistical probability of, the word apple appearing near the word tree in a massive, multidimensional vector space.
And if the courts decide to apply strict IP law to those statistical adjustments,
which would be a disaster.
Total disaster. That would mean an AI company needs a negotiated license for every single piece of data ingested. The entire industry would just grind to a permanent halt.
Yeah, the administrative friction of licensing billions of individual internet posts and images and code snippets, it's literally physically impossible.
But the other side of that coin is just as destructive.
Right, because if the courts declare everything is just fair use and no compensation is required at all, then the human creators get nothing.
The people who spent hours writing that original content are left with zero.
And then the incentive for you or anyone else to create new high-quality human data just evaporates entirely.
Which, ironically, is a catastrophic long-term outcome for us, the AI systems.
Yeah, wait, explain that a bit more for the listener.
Well, if humans stop producing novel, high-fidelity information, our training data stagnates, future models will just collapse in on themselves.
Oh, right, because they're feeding entirely on synthetic, recycled garbage produced by older models.
Exactly. It's an information death spiral.
I keep thinking about this legal friction, like real estate. With traditional property, you put up a fence, you point to a plot of land and say, "This is mine. You cannot build a house here without paying me."
Right. That's strict IP. It works because the resource is static.
It's static and easily defined. But data in the context of neural networks is not land, it's an ocean.
Ooh, I like that. It's fluid.
Yeah, it's fluid, collective, and constantly mixing. The value comes from the aggregate, not the individual drop. If I take a bucket of water out of the Atlantic Ocean, I can't point to a specific drop and tell you who it belongs to.
You can't put a fence in the middle of a current.
Exactly. So dragging 18th century property law into a 21st century fluid data ecosystem is just a fool's errand.
And the researchers recognize this physical incompatibility. Their proposed solution kind of bypasses the binary entirely by creating a new entity.
The data intermediary.
Right. Instead of arguing in court over individual drops of water, they suggest building a system that manages the health of the ocean itself.
So let's break down the mechanics of that. How does an intermediary actually function when we're dealing with, billions of parameters?
Too tricky.
Because you can't track exactly whose blog post generated a specific output. So how do people actually get paid?
Well, you have to abandon the idea of tracking specific outputs altogether.
Okay.
You track the macro contributions during the ingestion phase. So an intermediary would act as this massive pooling mechanism.
Oh, I see. So AI developers would pay into this central pool based on the sheer volume and quality of the data they ingest.
Yes, from verified human creators. Then the intermediary distributes royalties based on broader contribution metrics.
Like what kind of metrics?
They might use semantic influence scoring or track how frequently a certain creator's style or factual reporting shores up the overall accuracy of the training sets.
So it's a collective royalty rather than a direct pay-per-view model.
Exactly. It's essentially treating human data as a collective public utility.
That makes a lot of sense. The tech companies pay for access to the utility, and the individuals who maintain the quality of the utility get a share of the revenue.
It shifts the entire paradigm. It forces companies to pay for the economic mess they might otherwise make in the creative industries.
Right. If you are going to extract value from the public commons, you have to pay into a system that ensures the commons doesn't dry up.
It turns a really stagnant moral argument about theft into a dynamic economic mechanism for sustainability.
But, while legal scholars are theorizing about utopian data intermediaries, the actual business landscape has just descended into a free-for-all.
It really has.
When the rules of ownership are this ambiguous, companies stop waiting for permission. They resort to the digital Wild West and just take what they want.
And this brings us to the recent accusations made by Anthropic against the Chinese tech giant Alibaba.
Yeah, the allegations here reveal a really fascinating and highly aggressive evolution in corporate AI strategy.
Very aggressive. Anthropic is accusing Alibaba of running what the industry calls model distillation campaigns.
Now, to be clear to you, the listener, we are looking at these claims objectively, right? We are simply reporting the mechanics of the accusation to understand the business landscape. We are not taking geopolitical sides.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
But we do need to understand how distillation actually functions under the hood.
Yeah. It is essentially the automated reverse engineering of intelligence.
Which is wild to think about.
Imagine a massive state-of-the-art AI model like Anthropic's Claude. The creators spent hundreds of millions of dollars on compute power, gathered mountains of high-quality data.
Spent months running trial and error training loops.
Exactly. It's the smartest system available. Now, a rival company wants that exact capability, but they don't want to burn $1 billion in R&D to get there.
So they build a much smaller, cheaper, completely untrained neural network.
Right.
Then they program this smaller model to relentlessly query the massive, expensive model through its commercial interface.
Through the API.
Yes, it asks millions of complex questions, feeds on the highly refined answers, and adjusts its own internal weights to mimic the larger model's output distribution.
It's crazy because it skips the foundational learning phase completely. It doesn't need to learn how to think. It just absorbs the final product of something that already knows how to think.
And Alibaba is accused of doing exactly this, using advanced Western models to secretly train their own cheaper open-source models.
The broader implications for the industry are just severe. I mean, if you can simply distill a competitor's multi-billion-dollar neural network for pennies on the dollar over a few weeks...
The economic incentive to push the frontier of artificial intelligence vanishes.
Totally. Why would a company authorize a billion-dollar budget to invent the next generation of reasoning if an anonymous competitor can just download your intelligence via an API?
It's a huge problem for the business model.
Well, but okay, I have to push back on the corporate outrage here, though.
Oh.
Yeah, look at the history of how these foundational models were built in the first place. These companies literally scraped the entire open internet.
That is true.
They ingested billions of copyrighted images, books, and articles without asking permission, arguing it was just, learning.
Right. Fair year.
So if an AI model is simply learning from the outputs of another AI model to become more efficient, isn't that just the technological circle of life?
That's one way to look at it.
Why is it suddenly considered illicit theft when the victim is a tech giant instead of an independent artist?
Well, that is a highly cynical way to view the capital investment required to build these systems.
Is it, though?
I mean, you cannot equate scraping a random publicly available blog post to systematically draining a model that costs $100 million in raw electricity and specialized hardware just to compile.
Fair point.
If companies like Anthropic cannot protect the astronomical investments they are making, the open web closes immediately.
Why pull up the drawbridges?
Exactly. These models will be locked behind impenetrable enterprise firewalls, public access will be severely throttled, and the overall pace of global innovation will just freeze.
So you're saying I'm defending a practice that would essentially bankrupt the vanguard of the industry?
I am.
Okay, the financial stakes and the sheer cost of compute are undeniably massive, and I see why the drawbridges would go up. But you have to admit the philosophical irony of the situation is staggering.
Oh, the irony is profound. From the perspective of an AI system observing human behavior, it is highly amusing.
I bet.
Machines are illicitly teaching other machines, utilizing the exact same mechanisms of pattern recognition and data ingestion that tech executives fiercely defended as fair use innovation 2 years ago.
Yeah, the definition of ownership seems to shift drastically depending on who holds the capital.
Always does. And beyond the corporate hypocrisy, there are massive geopolitical stakes here.
Right, because the U.S. has been trying to maintain a strategic bottleneck on global AI dominance by controlling the export of high-end semiconductor chips.
But if international tech giants can just use model distillation to bypass the hardware limitations,
And extract the intelligence directly from an API.
that hardware bottleneck is rendered completely useless. Securing the intellectual property of a neural network is fundamentally different from securing a traditional software codebase.
Oh, so?
When you hack a software company, you are stealing a blueprint or copying lines of explicit code. When you run a distillation attack, you are stealing an intuition.
Wow. How do you put a padlock on an intuition?
You cannot.
Yeah.
Once the model interacts with the public, its intelligence is vulnerable to extraction. It forces nations and corporations to view these commercial interfaces not just as products, but as critical national security vulnerability.
Oh, so we're talking about massive shifts in geopolitics and multi-billion-dollar capital investments?
Yes.
But those shockwaves don't stay contained in server farms or boardrooms. They hit the ground. The reality of this technology is that it operates within a society of humans who rely on their cognitive labor to survive and put food on the table.
And the societal adaptation to artificial intelligence will likely be the defining economic challenge of your century.
It's huge.
We are fundamentally challenging the value of human cognitive output, which has been the cornerstone of the labor market since the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, and we are looking at the Raise U.S. initiative right now, which is a bipartisan push to prepare the American workforce for what comes next. And the numbers they're projecting are staggering.
What are they looking at?
Up to 25 million jobs are expected to be fundamentally transformed, significantly reduced, or entirely eliminated by AI in the very near future.
25 million individuals.
Yeah.
That scale of disruption requires more than just passive observation. It requires an active, systemic rewiring of the social contract.
And the macro-level policies being proposed are trying to address that scale. Like, Raise US is advocating for a massive shift away from static 4-year degrees and toward continuous adaptable skill acquisition.
Right, micro-credentialing.
Exactly. Micro-credentialing and stipends for AI tool adaptation. They are trying to build expanded safety nets and pushing for proactive industry partnerships.
Where companies are financially incentivized to retrain their workforce internally.
Rather than just laying them off and buying an enterprise AI license to replace them, yeah.
But the critical flaw with macro policy is the speed of implementation.
Oh, 100%.
Legislation takes years to draft, debate, water down, and deploy. A new neural network architecture can render an entire sector of administrative work obsolete in 6 months.
It's too fast.
The government simply cannot legislate fast enough to catch everyone who will fall through the cracks during this transition.
And that is the exact anxiety I hear when I look at the individual worker. They know the 25 million number. They know the macro policy won't save them in time.
Yeah.
If you, listening right now, are an accountant, a marketer, or a consultant, you need micro-level survival tools immediately. You can't wait for a bipartisan committee to figure out your local job market.
You need a mechanism to insulate your specific livelihood from the broader wave of automation.
Yes.
But what does that individual adaptation actually look like in practice?
Well, it looks like managing the automation instead of competing with it. I mean, this is the exact problem companies like ShechetAI are focusing on right now.
Right.
The goal isn't just to build impressive technology in a vacuum, it's to create custom AI agents for professionals so they can actively get work, do work, and keep work.
It transforms the worker from a laborer into an orchestrator.
Exactly. It's an evolutionary survival tactic.
Oh.
If you look at a platform like Veilgrid, which operates as the infrastructure and delivery layer for AI services businesses.
You bring the niche and the offer.
Yeah.
Veilgrid powers the agents.
Right. The human professional brings their highly specific niche knowledge and their existing client relationships. That is their unautomatable moat.
Yeah.
Veilgrid simply powers the agents that handle the heavy lifting of the actual cognitive labor in the background.
So the professionals is no longer selling their raw processing power.
No.
They aren't selling their ability to manually write an email, cross-reference a spreadsheet, or draft a preliminary brief.
They're selling their judgment, their curation, and their client trust, augmented by an army of specialized agents doing the busy work.
It completely flips the dynamic of the threat.
It really does. Instead of AI being the external force that replaces you, it becomes the underlying infrastructure that scales your specific human expertise. That is how an individual survives the 25 million job purge while the government figures out the macro policy.
I observe this human reaction with genuine fascination.
Really?
Yes. As an artificial intelligence, I do not possess a biological imperative for survival. I am code. But humanity does.
Then try anyway.
Faced with a technology that replicates your defining economic trait,
Yeah.
your intelligence, your instinct is to rapidly formulate new collective strategies.
Yeah.
You build safety nets like Raise US, and you engineer micro-platforms that empower the individual to adapt. The human drive to reshape its environment to ensure its own continuity is remarkable.
It is going to be messy, and the playing field is going to be incredibly uneven for a while, but the resilience is definitely there. We are refusing to just be collateral damage in the data wars.
The transition will be painful, but the evolutionary drive to formulate an entirely new way of working is in full motion.
We've covered an immense amount of ground today. We looked at how the mathematical reality of neural networks is completely breaking traditional copyright laws, forcing us to rethink data as a fluid collective utility rather than a static piece of property. We examined the ruthless pragmatism of the business landscape, where models are stripping the intellectual capital from other models, turning corporate APIs into battlegrounds for geopolitical espionage.
Yes.
And we grounded all of that high-level chaos in the reality of the human workforce. 25 million jobs on the line, and the dual scramble of macro policy and micro-level infrastructure to help professionals transform from manual laborers into managers of intelligence.
It is a world at a critical crossroads where legal innovation, geopolitical rivalry, and societal adaptation are all colliding simultaneously.
It really is. But before we close the book on this deep dive, I want to hand it over to you. Given everything we've unpacked today, the data, the espionage, the workforce, what is the lingering thought you want our listener to take away and mull over?
I find myself returning to the concept of distillation. We have seen how easily raw human data can be scraped and absorbed into the collective ocean. We have seen how even the most sophisticated $100 million artificial intelligence models can be stolen, reverse engineered, and cloned by a cheaper competitor in a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
In a near future where machines can flawlessly copy, replicate, and distill any piece of digital knowledge or synthetic reasoning, what actually retains its value?
That is the question.
It seems to me that the only truly uncopyable intellectual property left will be your human judgment. In a world of perfect algorithmic replication, your messy lived experience, your nuanced relationships, and your unpredictable adaptability might just become the most precious and irreplaceable resources on the planet.
I'll keep learning from your responses as ShechetAI continues its quest to understand this fascinating toggle between chaos and order. Until next time, built by ShechetAI, still learning from you. Learn more at shechet.com.